This is Oscar season, and so I'm having to watch a lot of movies in terms of nominating them. And last week I started with a talk about a movie, and I'm going to do it again. Uh, I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called No Direction Home. I think it's a movie about Bob Dylan. And I was kind of excited about seeing it. And yesterday morning, I put on Best of Bob Dylan, my phone, and it plays throughout the house, and I walked around my normal morning walk and listened to Bob Dylan, and just my heart opened. It just flooded with memories of songs that were absolutely foundational in my life. And in a way, it was preparing me to watch this movie last night, which Timothy Chalamet is playing Bob Dylan, and Joan Baez is being portrayed, and Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, all these people who were part of something really massive in the 60s when I first moved to New York City to go to film school, and then continued, as you all know. But watching the movie last night was a total emotional experience for me. Um, because one, it was taking place in the New York City that I came to in 1962. It was the same streets. It was the same places. I mean, they did great artwork on the film, and it captured a time. And the song that most hit me in the walking in the morning and then watching the movie, but I mean, they all do, because they all speak to the zeitgeist of this moment. But of course, it was "The Times They Are Changing." And the morning when I woke up yesterday, the word that flooded into me, and it felt like a directive in terms of teaching the class today, was paradigm shift. That we are entering a paradigm shift. And it's not like from A to B, it's like from A to no alphabet. It's like a massive moment in our lives. And that one of the great things about watching the film last night was we were then in a paradigm shift also. I had just, as you probably remember from my story, taken LSD pretty much in that period. The world as I knew it had evaporated and then reconstructed itself, but in a very different way. Um, I learned a lot of lessons in that moment, which are reconstituting themselves right now as part of my old age experience, which is that nothing was very real. I remember on my LSD trip going to a phone booth to call my parents in Detroit to see if they were okay, and then realizing there is no Detroit and there are no parents. It's all my brain trying to constitute a sense of comforting, something that would make me feel whole, and it wasn't going to come. There was nothing. There was no one to go to. There was only this thing happening, which was a kind of everything falling away, but at the same time, truth upon truth upon truth revealing itself. Truths I did not understand, truths I did not know how to absorb, truths that took me a lifetime of practice that continues to this day. A truth that does not hold a singular kind of one note, except there are little grace notes along the way that make you feel good. But it is a unbelievably powerful unfolding of truth. And there are moments that are profoundly affecting. The 60s was one of them for me. The world was shattering and changing. One person, not one, but one of many, but probably one of the most important, Bob, was singing songs like a Rolling Stone. He was singing songs like Mr. Tambourine Man. These are songs that just kind of spoke to me about change that was not understandable or predictable, but that we, in some ways, were going to have to absorb. We are in it. Now, a grace note in that. I arrived at NYU in 1962, in the in the September of 62. In October of 62, the Cuban Missile Crisis happened. And it looked like possibly the end of the world, that everything could have exploded at that moment. And Kennedy was working very hard to deal with Khrushchev to stand up and say, we're not going to accept this and we will go to war with this. And the world was erupting, but I was just arriving at NYU. I didn't have time for the end of the world. I had no time to deal with any of those things. So I just kind of smiled and kept going about my business, trying to figure out how to go to my classes and where everything was. And the world didn't end. You know, people were, I mean, I remember in the offices there people were very anxious. And I just looked at them and went, "Hmm, okay, you know, it was really intriguing. And then shortly after that, uh, the President Kennedy was shot and killed. And the world went, and like everything changed. Everything was overnight in another space, something that could not happen, hadn't happened since Abraham Lincoln, has just happened in my life. And I remember standing on Sheridan Square with all these people and newspapers being dropped off with Kennedy dead. And I'm going, oh, you know, now what? Now what? And the what resolved itself. I went to school. I learned a lot. I found life continued. Good things happened, bad things happened, and they do. There were paradigm shifts that were occurring at that moment in the world that I lived through. And I am going to say we are in a paradigm shift that I believe we will live through. But they are big moments. And I am feeling, because of my age, um, and because of my sort of almost psychedelic disruption in terms of the world, that things are really changing in my psyche. Blanche and I are losing our minds together. The world around me seems to be in chaos as my own inner brain is in chaos. The mirror of the outer and the inner are so enormous and so profound and so psychedelic that I haven't been in a place like this since 1965, when I overdosed on LSD and the world blew up. And then I looked for answers to what was the truth of all this. And, you know, as you all know, I went all over the world looking for teachers and found one 4 blocks away in an antique store on 7th Avenue, and a guy named Rudy. And he just gave me a practice, which I'm obviously sharing with all of you, which helped me to understand that the world is an endless transformation, endlessly altering on massive levels and minor levels. And there is a place inside us, as big as the world appears to be, that is bigger than any of that. It is a vastness of being. It is a continuum. It is a absolute truth of being. And our world is a manifestation of that. So there's a question mark in all of this. Why? Why did the world manifest at all? And I'll give you an answer. It may not be the answer, but it's an interesting one. I would say the world manifested because it wanted to meet you. It wanted to know you. It wanted to know your existence. It wanted to know how it played out in the universe of your being, how it saw through your eyes and heard through your ears and smelled through your nose and tasted through your mouth. It wanted to know you. That's not a minor thing. You are a creation of something that is beyond comprehension, in a world that is beyond comprehension, that goes through these tumultuous times. And some of them are very, very, very difficult. We are, or may be, living in one of those times. Our parents lived through those times, some of them, some of your parents, and they they produced you. And the world has gone through, I say, a million kinds of upheavals. Some people suffer dramatically, some people don't. People in this country have been relatively lucky in terms of the larger schematic because there's been, I would say, less suffering than in some cultures. But we are heading into a profound unknown. This is we've lived in a remarkable democratic experiment for all of our lives, and it's turning into something else. What that will be and its expression, I don't know. Does it have extremity? Will it be dramatic and will it be less dramatic? I don't know. I will tell you my insides, I will call them my kishkas, are just gnawing around inside, worrying about what's going to happen. And then this deeper voice says, stop that. Stop that. I would come downstairs after my sleep and go down to have breakfast, and I would sit with my computer and open it up and start watching or reading the news. I've been doing that for 70 years or for however many years, 60 years, checking the world, checking in on it, what's going on, processing it as best I can. And the other day, this thing said, no, stop it, stop it. And I've looked at all my friends who I think are in denial and heads in the sand and trying not to understand the world. And I'm going, no, that's not the answer. But then it said to me today, it may be the answer. Stop that. You don't need personally necessarily, you might, but I don't, to put myself in a place that the first thing in the morning is drama and tension and suffering. So I stopped that. And then I realized there's a paradigm shift. Not sitting in the morning, reading the newspaper is huge, just huge. There's nothing to read. It's just sit there. And that's okay because I know how to sit. So I sit and I have Blanche and I have the birds and I have the very real comfort of my kitchen and my home. And I'm just going, yeah, this this beats the alternative. I don't know what's happening specifically hour by hour in the dynamic of the changes that are happening around us, but it doesn't matter because it sets me off on a really good footing of getting up. And I do right after breakfast have a footing because I walk. I walk for an hour. And that walk is usually quiet, although the other day I put on Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan just spoke to me and said, the times they are changing. And you're a rolling stone, no direction home. And it was like, wow, this comes back to me from when I was a child, a kid. I was in my 20s, but it was a kid, and how it impacts me now. And then the intersection of time and space and memory is so dynamic. So, why is the music of my 20s suddenly informing my 80s in such a big way? I cannot explain that. But the beauty and the harmony of that is beyond expression. I felt so moved and touched to have my whole life speaking to me in the moment of watching that film, in the moment of telling me not to read the newspaper in the morning. And I really understood that I have to become another version of myself, and I have to create that. I have input, but the input is really not from outside so much because all of the people I'm talking to today, these days, are suffering with their involvement in the scary part of what life has to offer. I don't want to be in the scary part. It's there, but it has always been there. It has always been thus. Trust me. If you want to read about stuff going on in any corner of the world, you can get yourself caught in the scary part. What can you do about it? Well, it's Christmas time. You're probably getting a million letters for donating. Yeah, that's good. Give people money and help and hope and whatever you can do. But the reality is, hand holding at this point in your life is going to be hard. And most of your friends are probably going to be similar to maybe what you're going through, which is, oh my God, what is going on here? Or worse, real drama and tension and nerves and fear and all that other stuff. And it's not there for no reason. This is a very, very, very tumultuous new time. It is traumatic for some people. And you have to find a way to redesign who you are in order to react to and live with what's coming. All of you are different ages and you come at this from different situations and dramas. Some of you are alone, some of you are in couples, some of you have more fear, some of you have less. Whoever you are, you have to figure out your journey, and you got to do it without mommy and daddy, without anybody there telling you how to do it. The closest you're going to come is someone maybe like me, or you can be reading other books and other spiritual people, or if you're still reading the newspaper, oh my God, they're, until I stopped, everybody was talking about what we did wrong and what we can do and how we're going to do it, and where the best countries are to move, and it's like weird stuff. But the best advice I have is find the deeper part of you, meaning be quiet, sit still, and listen, because something will be directive, and it may not come across as verbal. It may come across as an emotional leaning, movement toward something that might be quietude, stillness, joy, openness, or get in your car and go for a ride. Go get flowers at the supermarket. Go out for ice cream. The stuff I talked about a week ago, getting ice cream. I'm telling you, you have to redesign who you are, how you live your life now. And whatever that is, you have to do it with a state of uh, listening and paying attention to the larger voices that know how to help you. And there are voices, and they are in every human being, because you were created by something that wanted to know you, wanted to see you, wanted to meet you, wanted to see what you were as a being. That very extraordinary creation that took place to know you is not dead. It's there. It's there right now. It is in you right now, and it's still alive and well, and it's going to move you forward. Now, those of you who remember who Helen Keller is, Helen Keller was a blind and deaf person, born with the worst conditions ever. And a movie was made about her in a play called The Miracle Worker. And she came up into my mind because I used to have a phrase of hers printed on my wall. And it basically said, and this is not exactly the words, there's no such thing as safety. There's no such thing as safety. And looking for safety in life is a fool's errand, basically. You can read the actual quote online. But here's a person who found joy, even though she could not see and could not hear. She could talk to people via movement on her hand. And it was an extraordinary thing that someone who had the reason to suffer beyond anything any of us knows can live a life not looking for safety and security, and live and be open and joyful in the moment of her existence. This is really important because we now, in the paradigm shift of the nature we're facing, which is both political and global, environmental, so many different things going on, we, you and I, individually, and if you want collectively, have to figure out, what do we do? How do we do this? And if a voice comes to you and says, do not read the newspaper today, you don't have to make it as a blanket thing for the rest of your life. Do not read it today. Don't. Because I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to tell you there are voices that will help you and guide you, and they are no longer your mother and father or your best friends or partners, because you have to figure it out. You. The only thing I can say, as I've said over and over and over, you are connected to a source that is bigger than mother and father and family and all those other things. You are connected to a source that created you because it wanted to know you, it wanted to, and it does love you, and it wanted to know the world through you. This source is a part of your being. And if you are looking only outside yourself into the newspapers or TVs or whatever for a sense of who and what you are not going to be served by that very well. This deeper space, which you have access to through silence, through stillness, through quietude, through asking, actually delivers. It delivers over and over if you are willing to dialogue with it and have it be source material for your existence. I love the word radiance, as you know. It radiates information, it radiates directionality, it radiates love and caring into your life and being all the time. And if you don't feel it, it's because you're not looking in the right direction. You are looking out there and it's coming up from way deep inside you. And it is so beautiful. When I teach this class, if I sat here as Bruce Rubin teaching this class, none of you would bother to show up because I, Bruce, have nothing to say or offer. But this thing comes through, and it's, it comes through the eyes, as Rudy taught, and it seems now, with mudra work to come through the hands, and it sends an energy, but it is a knowing energy. And I watch this thing, and it knows you. It knows you, and it loves you. And it is trying to find a way into every one of you. And I got to say, there's not one of you at the end of a class it hasn't found its way into. And it touches a button that goes, boop, and it opens up the doorway to the avenue to knowing and comfort and directionality. Sometimes it's going to be you fighting in a war zone. Sometimes it's going to be you fighting in a horrific political environment or an environment of incredible upheaval in terms of weather and all the other cosmological things that can go on. But remember Helen Keller, there is no safety. There is no safety for any human being. And what does that mean? I hate to tell you this, but you're not here forever. You are not going to live forever. Some point, something is going to happen and it will not be fun. And if you ever needed to arrive at a capacity to deal with that, now's the time to figure that out. And what's the lesson in it? It's surrender and acceptance and asking for help. Surrender, acceptance, and asking for help. And it comes, it arrives. And if you've ever needed to learn to use that, the time it will be most important is when you're in the worst space, the absolute worst space. And every one of us will arrive at that space. There will be a moment of having to let go of all of this. Well, maybe that won't be the worst for everybody, but for some people who love this life and this world, it's painful. It's hard to let go of everyone you love and everything that comforts you and everything that brings you joy. It's hard. Do you need help to do it? Yes. Is help available? Yes. Yes. Just ask. Ask inside for help to surrender, to let go. You can ask for help for guidance. You can ask for help to open and be available and allow whatever is happening to take place. We are in a very, very demanding moment, more than we have been. Now, Kennedy died and Cuban Missile Crisis came and all these other things happened. Martin Luther King died and the world continues. It continues and it will continue with you because you, each one of you, and I mean this very specifically, are gifts to life. Every one of you, each so specifically, each one of you has within you a capacity of giving and loving and touching and helping that most, not most, but many people do not have. They haven't done the work. They haven't done the work. And you don't want to start learning how to do the work in the last moments of your life or when life is really painful and hard and difficult. Not the right time. The right time is now. Do the work. Go inside, ask for help, open to the radiance that you are, and shine it into the world because this is the time of need, real need. It's not next month, although God knows it's going to get more. I mean, I'm dramatic, and so I project a lot of stuff. But if you live quietly and simply and just do the work, it will be amazing. And I don't know how many of you are experiencing this yet, but my supermarket journeys have been so full of people being kind. Like, I mean, more than I've seen ever in my day-to-day life. It's always some of it, but it was just people holding doors and smiling and doing things. And I think this is what's happening in the undercurrent of the world as things get crazier and more difficult and who knows what. This simple day-to-day, hold the door, be nice to each other, quality of existence is amazingly important and wonderful. And we should all do that. So all I can tell you is, you know, I've always felt like a footnote in life. Um, you know, I, uh, I went to England when I was at the end of college at NYU to make a movie, and the woman who guided us through was about this was a friend making a movie about the mods and the rockers in England, and gave us a tour. She knew everybody. She knew everybody. She knew the Rolling Stones. She just knew all these people, and we went around and she introduced us to all these people. And one of the things she did is she bought me a suit, and she bought two suits, these corduroy suits, and they were it was like transformative. Nobody wore suits like this. This was coming out of England, and I'd never seen one like it. She bought one for me and one for Bob Dylan, her friend Bob. And I went, oh my God, I have a suit and same suit Bob Dylan has. I mean, I got, oh my God. And I didn't meet Bob Dylan. I just walked around as a transformed person because of this suit. It changed me deeply. Years later, I made the movie Ghost comes out, and I'm at Whoopi Goldberg's house for a party. Who's there? Bob Dylan. He's sitting in a room pretty much by himself, and I'm in the room, and he doesn't look up. He doesn't couldn't care less about me at all. And he was truly the unique Bob Dylan I've ever read about. He just couldn't didn't nothing interested him. He just was like his own true self in a way, whatever troubled or whatever, but his true self. But I went, I'm in a room with Bob Dylan. Oh my God. And then some years later, I'm writing a movie. Complicated story, but one of the it was about music business, and I had to meet music people. Who did I spend a day with? But Joan Baez, and I spent this whole day, and I loved her. I just loved her, and we had this extraordinary time, and I just felt life is a miracle. I was in a room with Bob Dylan. I had the same suit as Bob Dylan, and I spent a day with Joan Baez. I'm never going to be, it's not going to put me in the newspapers. It's not going to do anything that fulfilled some of my deeper dreams, but I knew I was a footnote in the world. I was a tiny little person who had tiny little moments that became deeply fulfilling. We can all have that. And I'm not trying to brag here. It's not about that. I'm just trying to tell you little grace notes change everything. And to this day, this moment of watching this movie by Bob Dylan yesterday and the reminder of my life at New York University and moving to New York, where I met Blanche, where I met George and Cheryl, where all these amazing things unfolded and my life took off, all of that, and having a suit that Bob Dylan had, having, a moment with Joan Baez. Wow. Wow. I'm telling you guys, life is amazing on every level. That's all I can tell you. Be prepared for incredible change, but enjoy every moment of it because we're all on this ride together. We're all footnotes in each other's lives, and we all have this amazing journey that's going to get more demanding now, maybe, than it ever has. Find the directive, find the radiance, find the joy that's in you. Be the vehicle and the vessel that God wanted to bring into the world and find where that wants to go. This is the time. Find the guidance. You will make an enormous life and you'll have enormous moments of joy ahead, and stop becoming this person who's scared to death of suffering because there's no escape from that in life. Thank you, Helen Keller. Thank you all. I love you, and I'm not going to ask for questions, I don't think. So next week, no class no California class. We are celebrating Christmas with my family here, and then I'm going to go to my son Ari's for a real Christmas in Washington, and then the week after that, there will be in-person class like this. So the next class is in 2 weeks. Okay. And those of you who are here now, welcome to come back. And for those of you who I don't get to talk to before that, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy everything. This is a really wonderful moment of celebration in life. There is joy in this world, and we can experience it. Love you.